So typically once or twice a year when the schedule turns to offseason, we'll get one really interesting head coaching hire that proves to be the defining hire of the period. Sometimes it's really confusing, and sometimes it brings up a lot of storylines on its own. A few years ago, that was the signing of Deion Sanders to become the new head coach at Colorado, and that had a lot of people interested in seeing how it would work or if it would crash and burn. Last year, we had Kalen DeBoer going from Washington to Alabama and all the different fallout that came from that. And then you saw a huge ripple effect with guys like Jed Fish going to Washington and then Brent Brennan going to Arizona. Honestly, I already thought we had some pretty interesting hires, as we had UCF and West Virginia go nostalgic and rehire their old coaches in Scott Frost and Rich Rodriguez. But then North Carolina went and made the most unique coaching decision of the entire carousel that could either burn the entire program down to the ground or turn them into a national title contending team. They decided to hire former New England Patriots head coach Bill Belichick to be the head man. He's currently 73 years old, and this was a bit of a crazy hire because the guy they just fired, Mac Brown, was 72 years old, which a lot of people believed was too old to be coaching. They thought the game had passed him by, and then added the fact that Belichick is one of the best coaches in NFL history, was the coach of the infamous New England Patriots, and his fit in college. There is a lot to talk about, and in today's video, we're going to talk about this hire. We're going to talk about why Bill Belichick decided to go to North Carolina, his background, and how I think it'll end up going for him. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about Bill Belichick to North Carolina. Honestly, it's not a surprise that Belichick was interested in coaching again, as ever since he was fired from the New England Patriots at the end of the 2023 season, he's been looking for a job at the NFL level. He's been on and off as a guest on online shows like the Manning Cast or the Pat McAfee Show, as he's done various things like cover the NFL Draft, but during that entire time, he's been interviewing for positions with teams like the New York Jets. Despite that, he was not able to find his way to a head coaching job in the NFL, so he decided to look a different avenue. Going back in time, Bill started coaching in 1975 as he was an assistant coach with the Baltimore Colts. He got his first official coaching job in 1977 as he was a tight ends coach with the Lions. He then became the defensive coordinator of the New York Giants in 1985, and then in 1991, he was made the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, where he was joined by Nick Saban as his defensive coordinator. What a duo. He and Nick continued to grow into the league until they almost became carbon copies of each other, a blight they were in different leagues. Nick Saban went on to win 7 national championships in college at Alabama, and Belichick, once he took over for the New England Patriots in 2000, ended up winning 6 Super Bowls. Part of that came down to the two's coaching style. They both became obsessive with the game of football, hyper-focusing on every detail in order to win football games. His former players aren't shying away from that, even if it comes down to potential struggles in the college football world. Damian Harris, who was drafted by Bill in 2019, said, quote, "I mean this in the most respectful way possible. Bill is a control freak. Bill has to have absolute control. When he was in New England, he was the head coach. He was essentially our GM, and he wore a lot of hats. On college football, it doesn't really work that way." But that need to have complete control is also part of the reason he eventually failed in New England. He wasn't willing to compromise, and he wasn't willing to change. While making things his way or the highway worked for over 20 years, winning 6 Super Bowls, it meant that his team slowly fizzled out over some time. Tom Brady was also a big part of that. New England won the AFC East every year from 2009 to 2019, and had won the division 17 times during his 23 years as the Patriots' head ball coach. But each of his last 4 years, he couldn't even manage to win the division, going 7-9 in 2020, 10-7 in 2021, 8-9 in 2022, and 4-13 in 2023. He had gone from one of the greatest coaches in NFL history to undeniably, unfortunately, a bad coach. This happened for a few reasons. There were some sharp disagreements between him and one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, Tom Brady. This caused Brady to leave the team and pretty much instantly win another Super Bowl with Tampa Bay. His refusal to sign new coordinators or innovate the offense pretty much ruined the development of first-round pick Mac Jones as well, who is now the backup in Jacksonville after being run into the ground by a bad Matt Patricia-led offense in 2023. Belichick kept hiring his friends instead of innovating his offense. Damian Harris echoed the same thing, saying, quote, "If he didn't evolve at a position where he'd been coaching for over 40 years, I mean he takes a year or two off, and then you think that he's going to be able to come to the college world where it's nothing but survive and adapt every single day? Question mark. It doesn't really seem like it'd be the perfect fit." There's already fears that he hadn't learned his lessons from New England, as one of the staples of a Bill Belichick staff is that he has to have his sons on board. Steven, his oldest, immediately joined Bill's staff after finishing his college career at Rutgers, where he was a defensive assistant from 2012 to 2015 until becoming the safeties coach in 2016 and coaching DBs and linebackers until he left for the Pats in 2023 to be the DC of the Huskies. His other son, Brian, has been the safeties coach in New England since 2020. While he has denied that he has done this, there were reports that Bill even had a manifesto in place while he was talking with UNC that detailed a few things that would have to happen for the Tar Heels to sign him as a head coach. Some of these rumored things included UNC also signing both Steven and Brian as assistant coaches, with Steven being named the defensive coordinator and also the head coach in waiting. But there are some things that Bill demanded North Carolina for that could be a positive for the Heels. For one, he's demanding that the athletic department not view themselves as just a basketball school, and he wants the money to prove that. At his hiring, he asked for $16 million to build a staff and $13 million in essential NIL funding. He's also focused on building a coaching staff that's dedicated to developing a pro-style program at the college level. He's retained Freddie Kitchens, who spent a lot of time in the NFL, and was even the head coach of the Browns for a little bit. He brought in Michael Lombardi, who had spent a lot of time as a scout and a front office professional in the NFL, and he's supposed to be North Carolina's quote-unquote general manager. This would mean he'd oversee recruiting, player personnel, and NIL. According to Ian Rappaport, that's part of the reason he's pushed so hard for a huge coaching salary staff, as he's trying to get his right guys in place. Belichick said, quote, "On the staff, we'll hire the best coaches we can hire. I want to do everything I can to help take this program and make it as strong as possible. So we'll hire the best ones we can get. There'll certainly be some strong presence of NFL people on this staff, and I think that's a certainty, and not only in the staff, but in the training area. There is definitely a chance that Belichick could get more NFL guys to North Carolina this year and next, and that would definitely be very intriguing to watch. The main shortcoming that Belichick will have to overcome if he wants to succeed at the college level is that he's actually never coached college football. It is legitimately a different game entirely. His dad was a college coach and even spent some time in Chapel Hill from 1953 to 1955, but Bill has never had to work with 18-year-olds in his career, and especially has never had to spend time recruiting. Bill isn't always known for being the kindest guy to people he's around, especially not his players or his coaches, which has caused some problems during his last coaching stop. Occasional NFL players would even admit that they only decided to play in New England because they knew Belichick would help them win and for no other reason. He's not exactly the most fun guy to be around during the football season, even to his best players. Tom Brady said, quote, "He's not the warmest and fuzziest of all guys. I remember one year after we won the Super Bowl, we got out in a limo onto Bourbon Street after we beat the Rams in 2001, and he goes, 'You know what, Tom? You had a pretty good season.' That was about as warm and fuzzy as it got with Coach Belichick." The biggest concern with Belichick will be whether or not his knowledge of the professional side of football and his desire to have complete and total control will actually translate to the college level. There isn't free agency in college football. I mean, I guess there kind of is, but there is something similar in the transfer portal. A former NFL GM and co-worker of Belichick mentioned that NIL could be a huge benefit to Coach B, like it was with other big-name coaches who decided to jump to college football, like Coach Prime and Jim Mora. He said, quote, "College football is looking more like professional football. The NIL and the payment of players is one of those ways. But the actual football side of it hasn't changed all that much. Coach B knows situational football. He's about technique, he's about fundamentals, and those are the things that are the standards within a Bill Belichick program, and that's the stuff that Bill loves to teach. But it isn't a one-to-one comparison, and younger guys might not want to play for a 73-year-old who's notoriously not super fun to be around and won't congratulate them on their success. Except on the other hand, it might actually attract a certain crowd. I think there's a lot of people who are sort of tired of the soft way football has gone, and most likely he'll be able to attract players who really want to work hard and maybe aren't necessarily expecting to be prima donnas. Right now, his only recruiting draw is that he won in the NFL, and the best part about it is, it might actually be working as a pitch. One of North Carolina's biggest wins in their 2025 class was four-star quarterback Bryce Baker. When Mac Brown was fired, there were concerns that the new head coach wouldn't be able to hold on to him, especially if they were older. As soon as he was hired, though, Coach Belichick went straight to communicating with Bryce to keep him on board. After essentially interviewing Coach Belichick, Bryce decided to stay with North Carolina. He said, quote, "Just his resume of him being in the NFL, he knows what it takes to develop a quarterback and what a quarterback has to do at that level and the characteristics that a quarterback has to have success in the league." It's clear that Coach Belichick is using his success in the NFL as a recruiting pitch for others. This is something he'll definitely need to do, since North Carolina did not have the best recruiting class in the world. At one point, they were ranked behind teams like Wyoming and Bowling Green. When Belichick came in, they only had a total of 9 recruits, so Belichick has had to hit the transfer portal really hard and target some of the best players in the portal if they're going to be a contender next year. So when you take a look at the recruiting class, Bryce Baker is obviously the biggest name, as he's a number 13 overall quarterback in the class of 2025, and then there's a ton of 3-star recruits. In terms of the transfer portal, they've landed a couple of big names, as they got a 4-star linebacker from Washington by the name of Kamori House, a wide receiver from Michigan State by the name of Isaiah Johnson. They got Prince Yates, an edge rusher from UConn, Ryan Brown, a quarterback from Purdue, former 4-star Alabama offensive lineman Miles McVay, and South Carolina tight end Connor Cox. Honestly, taking a look at that transfer portal class, it doesn't really pop off the page, and neither does his 2025 recruiting class, but I'm sure Bill Belichick will continue to figure it out and hopefully get the right guys in his system. To me, this is still absolutely crazy. It's the riskiest hire in the 2025 cycle, as it'll either look genius and he'll win 9 or 10 games in year 1, or it'll be a complete disaster where he leaves mid-season and will kind of remind me of maybe an Urban Meyer to Jacksonville situation. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but for now though, I remain skeptical but somewhat optimistic. What do you guys think though? If you're a North Carolina fan, how do you think Bill Belichick will do this year, and what do you think will be his drawbacks and strengths? Also, be sure to let me know what other topic I should cover next, and another coaching hire I should cover. And before you go, don't forget to also leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.